Welcome back, everyone, to another Sales Hacker live event. We've got some folks still rolling in, so we'll just do some light housekeeping while we wait. If you don't know me, I'm Sam. I'm a content marketer here at Sales Hacker, and I'm so happy that you are choosing to spend this hour with us. If you've been here before, you know that we love to keep this super interactive and engaged. So you're here live, which makes you amazing. So definitely take advantage of that. Talk to the other panelists in the chat. Ask questions of these incredible panelists that are joining us today. And while some people are still joining the call, go ahead down to the chat box at the bottom. Introduce yourself. Tell us your role. Let us know where you're tuning in from or your favorite flavor of ice cream. We want to hear from you. And if you'd like to ask the panelists questions, you can drop those in the Q&A. Please use the Q&A instead of the chat, just so they don't get lost. And we'll pull those in periodically throughout the conversation. We definitely want to talk with you, and we'll also save some room at the end to get to anything we missed. So today we are talking about how to find your voice as a woman in sales, how to position yourself to move up and to win the next role. And not only that, but talking with leaders about how they can recognize the potential in everyone and how all of us can be the change that we want to see in our organization. So this is absolutely a conversation from everyone. For everyone, but you're not going to be hearing it from me. We have a phenomenal group with us here today, and I'm going to turn it over to none other than Jen Ferguson, who will give us a bit of an introduction, frame up the conversation, and then open the floor to the other panelists to introduce themselves as well. So Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate you and Sales Hacker for having me. I'm a community leader for Sales Hacker, but additionally, I'm a champion for women in sales. I'm a global sales onboarding program manager over at Salesforce. But really, this is something I'm passionate about, how to elevate women, how to really embrace your voice and get to that next level in sales, but also sort of level the playing field. You know, a lot of people, companies, hiring managers will look at men for their potential. And when they look at women, sometimes they don't necessarily see that potential, but mostly look at the experience. And so, how do we get away from that? How do we be the change that we want to see in the world so that generations from now, my daughter, doesn't experience the same bias that I have throughout my career? So, this is going to be a great conversation. I am so excited to have a fantastic panel of ladies joining me. So let's go around, and I think we have Joyce first on my screen anyway. Not sure how it looks to everybody else, but Joyce, tell us.
Yes, hello there. I am Joyce Johnson. I'm a 8-time author, speaker, sales champion, business coach, and founder of Wise Sales Network. And, I'm with Jen. I'm very passionate about this. I have 25 years plus of corporate sales experience. I've sold on behalf of some of the largest companies in the world to some of the largest companies in the world. And I think a lot of time through that journey, my voice has been a little silent, a little quiet. So I'm happy to be a part of this panel and be able to share my journey in hopes to change some minds out there and be able to change some of the experiences that women coming up now could have a little bit easier and be recognized for their potential and their power.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Joyce. Catherine.
Hey, thank you all for having me here. My name is Catherine Rubbles. I'm out of Canada, so I'm in Toronto, and I'm originally from Colombia. So I'm a woman, Latin woman in sales, so have gone through a couple of ups and downs in that front, but always confident of what I was bringing onto the table has brought me to where I am, which is why my biggest commitment to other women out there is just empowering them to find their voice. How we chose today's topic really comes to me is finding your voice and following it. So that's pretty much where I focus my energy on, empowering other women to feel comfortable having conversations and driving for their goals and their plans to be successful.
Thank you so much. And I love that. That's amazing. Hannah.
Hey, so I'm Hannah Ajikawa. I'm based in the UK in Essex. I've got a wealth of experience in sales. I've played every role from BDR up into management. I spend most of my time chasing my son around the house. He's a 4-year-old, a very energetic little boy. And when I have some spare time, I work very diligently with startups and scale-ups all around the world, helping them with their sales process and their sales methodology. This discussion is pretty important to me. I've had a wealth of experience littered with some very peculiar situations throughout my career. I'm head of Europe for Sisters in Sales, which is something I'm extremely passionate about. So really helping to increase the visibility of women of color in sales. That's Black women, that's Latinx women, that's Asian women, and also working with them to increase their confidence to take advantage of all of the opportunities that are out there, but we're still not quite taking them. So I'm really excited about this discussion. Hopefully I can share some wise words, but I'm looking more forward to learning from the rest of everybody else on the panel.
Thank you. And that's an interesting perspective. Like, are we not taking the opportunities? That's something to pause on for a second. Like, when you own your voice, do you then move on and bring everything you have to the table and go after that next level role as opposed to, stay with the status quo? So that's amazing. Thank you. Ashley, the amazing Ashley.
I know. Anyone else do those activities in school where, like, on the first day of class, you always have to pick an adjective that has the same first letter as your name? I was always stuck on amazing. I could never think of anything better than that, and I always hated it. But it's a little flashback there. But as that thing says, my name is Ashley Early. I am the head of sales at Duckbill Group, which is a company that helps you lower your insanely crazy AWS bills. But more relevant to the discussion here today, I am the CEO and co-founder of The Other Side of Sales, which is a podcast, blog, and research group focused on making B2B sales truly inclusive so everyone can thrive. We've been around for just over 2 years now, and basically we were founded because my co-founder, Casey Jones, who is no longer with us, she's moved on to bigger and better things. But she and I were honestly looking for podcasts to listen to about sales, to up our sales game. And we were like, why are there no podcasts by women other than Conversations with Women in Sales, which is amazing and you should all go subscribe to. And for the first time in my career, I had the thought process of, well, no one else is doing it, why not me? And for one of the first times in my career, I was able to shut up that negative committee in my head and go, oh, I can do this. And so it's been an incredible journey. We just launched our second annual sales census. We're going to drop a link in the comments. This is a university-backed research study that we're doing in combination with Oregon State University, Washington State University, University of Wyoming, and Auburn University to actually get real data around what the experience of being in sales is like, as well as the state of diversity and inclusion in sales. So not just like how white or non-white is sales, how male or non-male are we in sales, but also what is the presence of microaggressions and what is the impact that has on quota in sales. It's 10 to 15 minutes. It is incredibly powerful research. Please, please, please take the study, share it with your coworkers, with your network. This is a really important opportunity beyond the conversation today to keep this stuff going and to keep these conversations rooted in data. So very, very cool stuff. It does take 10, 15 minutes. But that's because it's really important stuff. And obviously, othersideofsales.com for everything podcast and blog.
I dropped it in the chat, and so did Sales Hacker. So it is there like 3 times. And I can't tell you, after seeing last year's study and getting a feel for just where we were and where the opportunities were for improvement, anything that's data backed, where you're actually taking a pulse of what is actually happening out there in the industry, I think is super powerful. Because even though, like, I share a lot of stories, right, about some of my experiences, I've also been in sales for 20 years. So something that happened to me a decade ago wouldn't necessarily happen to me now. Something that happened to me 20 years ago wouldn't necessarily happen to me now. And so that experience for women in sales has evolved over time, for the good, for the better, right? There's been lots of improvement. There are areas for opportunities for improvement as well, but you can't just focus on where their opportunities are without stopping for a moment and taking in and cheering for the progress. I think that's important.
Absolutely.
That progress and what you're saying with that opportunity that you took to create a podcast, right? And sort of embracing your voice and your power is a good way to segue into our opening question here. When was that like aha moment of when you fully realized your potential in sales? You know, I posted something on LinkedIn today that was a video of from Untamed, which is the cheetah story. And I don't know if everyone's read Untamed, but the beginning of the book is amazing in the regard that it makes you consider where you are and how you felt. I mean, it brought me to tears. And I'll put the link in here because I did grab it. But it's, you know, we're going to go around to everyone and share, like, when was that moment where you felt like you realized your full potential, or what the breakthrough moment where you could see this is my journey, and this is where I'm going to own it, and this is my path, and this is what I'm capable of. So let's start with you, Joyce.
I don't know if I've gotten there yet. I mean, I was like reared up today watching that cheetah story. I'm like, yes, because I'm a cheetah. I think it took me to a whole nother level just in that moment, Jen. So thanks for, sharing, I have to say sometimes I think doing as a young woman when I probably took my first role in leadership, and I had at the time a very supportive leader, and I had moved from one company under my maiden name to another company under my married name. And when I went in to meet those same customers the following week, they're like, "Oh my God, we're so glad it's you. We were wondering if it was you." And I realized how I had really gained that customer trust and in their business, and they just said, we haven't had anyone who really gotten themselves embedded in our business the way that you have as a seller. And that customer in itself became very kind of protective of the Joyce Johnson brand, right, with my corporate company. And I think there's just been different times where my voice have leveled up. I think in 2019, June 2019, when I was having an uncomfortable, I say the word unfair. I tell my nieces all the time, nothing's fair, but I felt I was having an unfair, unjust, just a crazy conversation. And I said, well, why don't you offer me a package and let's see what that looks like. And I think in that moment, I made an unveiling for myself. I made a powerful decision for my life and for the lives of my nieces and the young women in my family, the young women that I mentor and coach, that, because when I coach women, sometimes I've told them, once you check all the boxes and you've done everything that someone asked you to do, and they still say that is not enough, then I need you to walk away and do something else because you're just that damn good. So on that day, I took my own advice and I walked away. So I think that, if I had to pick to one day, that then, hey, that summer of 2019 was probably it.
Oh my goodness, I'm on mute. That's an amazing story. And, and I've got quite a few number of those moments, but I'm going to let the panel go first. And we do already have a question. And, let's just thank you for sharing. Catherine, what about you? How about a breakthrough moment for you?
I think it was just building up since I was very little. So I've always been the troublemaker because I would always be questioning everything. I would not be the one to follow the rules. Wear your uniform a certain way. Your skirt has to be this height. Not because I was a rebel, but I didn't really see at the end of the day, eye to eye to those rules or those standards. So yeah, I was always labeled that troublemaker. And I've always been, up until now, being that person that, why do you have to challenge the other person? Can't you see there's a senior in front of you? Your thoughts, your ideas are not there. However, funny enough, my dad has always encouraged me to be that way, right? Find your voice, Catherine. Stand up for yourself with respect and with the right tone and the right attitude. It'll work out. So I've always been, encouraged to speak up and share my truth. Throughout my entire career, that has been the way that I've always had my conversations. And more recently, when I joined one of the biggest consultancy firms in the world, and I got there, everyone was like, you're talking here to these leaders and these senior people, like these are national industry leaders. Everyone wants to talk to them. And you're joking around with them, or you're talking to them that way? Are you really being that personable? And then when I left, they were all very appreciative of that. And that's when it clicked. It's all about that human interaction. I've always obviously been like, okay, human, sales is for humans, right? Sales is human. You got to connect with your audience, but still we are always forced into following a certain process or following certain standards. When I was able to validate with all these folks that everyone looks up to, that my personality was the one helping me stand out from the crowd and was the one really empowering me to get to the next level, then that was my aha moment. Like, I'm actually on track. Because I had a lot of step backs, right? Every time that you have a manager that says, you were off, you were this. And even though you would get the feedback from some customers sometimes and clients saying like, okay, we missed you, you did a great job. But if your manager is constantly pushing you down or asking you to tone it down, it hits you. And then I got the validation that I needed, right? Like, yeah, that the world needs a lot more voices. That's where that diversity of thought comes into play as well. And it's about knowing how to use it, right? You cannot just come and disrupt everything, but knowing how to use your tone and your voice. That's for me kind of my validation of sales and, the power of women really everywhere they want to be, anywhere they want to be.
That's amazing. I think that's a wonderful story and very much resonates with me. The idea that people keep on pushing you down and telling you what you can't do or what that's not going to work, and bringing it back to that human to human interaction and the value that you as a woman. I think not enough people embrace this idea that you as a woman have your own unique skill sets and unique way of just being able to be successful in sales because of what you bring to the table, not in spite of it, but because of it. There are studies out there that, women make quota more often than men, and they accelerate deals more often than men in a lot of ways. Not that men aren't great, but there's some unique talents that women bring to the table that should be celebrated and embraced. So thank you for sharing that. Hannah.
No, thank you. It's really interesting to hear Catherine speak, because I'm like, as a kid, I was like the ultimate goody two shoes. Like, I was that kid where like the teacher would send me a letter at the end of the year saying, thank you for helping me manage the classroom at like 16. But you being in the classroom really helps. I'm like, that shouldn't really have been happening. So I was a major goody two shoes. I always have been, literally, nothing's changed. So I found it really, I struggled when I first got into the corporate sales environment in a really big corporate company to be told, you're really aggressive and hard to work with. And I'm like, what? I literally I've never had a fight in my life. I barely have arguments. It was really hard to have a line manager like that. And it really it confused me a lot. So it was interesting when that line manager transitioned out of the business and I had a new manager, and he kind of looked around the room after like 2 days of sitting in the background and said, you look like you know what's going on here. Let's have a chat. And then we went for we went for a coffee, and he was like, tell me what's going on. What do you do well? What's not working? You've had a manager that's been missing for a while. And we had a good chat. And I was like, wow, someone's listening to me and not kind of telling me that me in my own skin is not good enough, without really getting to know me. So that was, I had an aha moment, and kind of, this is making sense to me when that manager transitioned into the business. And the team started doing well. I started doing extremely well. I came out of myself. I came out to my team as well. I was a bit shy to tell everyone I'm gay, so I told the one person who had a big mouth, just hoping he'd tell everyone. And by the next day in the office, they're like, "Oh my god, Hannah! Oh my god!" And I was like, "Finally, these hills were killing me. This whole fake identity thing. What was I thinking?" But like the moment I became comfortable with myself, right, I just did better. So just like owning myself, owning my own identity, I became much more comfortable. I did better. And I remember the thing that really clicked for me and really understanding, oh, okay, I've got something here, was one of the kind of sales director, the national sales director, came and said, you've got, you've done really well. Why do you think that is? And I think you've got something special, and, won a couple of awards and stuff. And I was like, I just kind of just kept my head down and got on with my job. But she that person alongside my line manager made me realize the concept of having internal stock value. It's something that I never really understood. So it was like knowing like your worth internally, and without being boastful, it's like you need to kind of network, and you need to talk to people. You need to let people know, yeah, I work on this project because I'm doing that. Because at the point where you're seeking internal promotions, nobody knows who you are. Like, there's a scoreboard, there's 300 salespeople. Who are you? Like, all right, you get the top end of it, but what does that mean? So that was one point for me. And the next point was really having a baby, right? And being like, I literally created a human. I can do anything. I'm sorry, guys. There's nothing you can tell me anymore, right? So it got to the point for me where it was, okay, there's lots of like external stock value things for me. So I think a bit like what Catherine's saying, you go to a client and they're like, we chose you because of you, to be honest. The other sales guys from the other companies came in and they just slated you guys. And I was like, like, I knew how they sold. So I just left it, right? I let them do their thing. And it's like, you guys were honest. You were 30% more, but we can trust you. So it was just like, okay, so you get that internal validation, that external one, and you kind of become a bit like, you build this confidence to be like, okay, I know where to go. But I guess the challenge that I had is really, and I'm guessing we're going to touch on this later, is having that coach, having somebody to direct you from there. So I've now established my worth, and I don't really know what to do with it, right? So it's so important once you do get to that stage where you feel like, you know what, I'm getting a bit confident now, to kind of seek out those coaches and mentors, and lean even outside of your business, and join communities like Sales Hacker, join communities like Rev Genius, join communities like Sisters in Sales, where there are so many people that are literally willing to help you, often for free, which is even better, to help you kind of elevate yourself. So that's kind of my aha moment regarding my career so far.
I love that. And Summer here put in the chat, amen, we create our own people. We're badasses, which is entirely true. So thank you for sharing that. A lot of that resonated with me as well. So it's amazing that, we all have this shared experience, and we're all closer than we think, and being able to support each other. And I think that's where you were leading with the coaching, and we'll get into that in a minute. And then we also have a question, but Ashley, we would love to hear, what is a breakthrough moment for you?
I think mine came like first of all, my first reaction to this question was which one? Because I feel like this is something that has to happen about every 18 months. I need that reminder, because you start hitting that ceiling, and then you have the breakthrough, and then you're good for a while, and then you hit it again. And actually, I'm going to share not my most recent one, but the one previous, which was about a 3-week period started December 19th, 2019, when I was laid off for the 4th time in 3 years, and ended about a month later when I founded Ashley Early LLC Consulting. And what happened during that period was basically me being so frustrated and fed up with, at the moment, what I was perceiving to be companies kind of chewing me up, using me for my skills and spitting me out when they no longer needed me, or when I had trained someone to do my job for cheaper, or they thought they could outsource it that way. And I hit this moment of basically, F it. I'm sick of doing things your way. I'm going to do it my way. And I didn't know what my way was. I did not know how to be a consultant. I had spent years telling people that I thought consultants were overpriced salespeople who were only good at selling themselves. I said I never wanted to run my own company. That was too much work and too much responsibility, that the pay was too inconsistent. And 2020 was the year of doing everything I swore I would never do, and actually finding out I really enjoyed it. So I think the breakthrough for me was the moment I stopped playing by their rules and stopped defining myself by their success. In 18 months, I went from being a kind of senior SDR manager or trainer to now head of sales at a company who's hiring people with, 10 to 20 years more experience than I do. and owning that intelligence and all the work that I've put in instead of talking down and going, no, I'm not ready for this. No, I'm ready. And we're doing stuff and I'm really excited about it. But it only started when I said, screw your rule book, I'm writing my own. And I stopped caring about what people said. I wasn't afraid to say, I think that maternity leave policy in the US is criminal. I stopped being afraid to say that companies should provide paid time off to work. I stopped being afraid of saying that in a lot of cases, cold calling still works and probably should. And just stating these things made it very clear who I was, what I stood for, and clients found me versus me constantly having to go out and ingratiate myself to people who I'm just never going to win over anyway. So leaning into myself and what I know to be true actually made my life a lot easier, not just mentally, but in my sales practice, in my business. And it's been an incredible ride, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's been absolutely terrifying at the same time. But it would never have been there if I hadn't basically thrown out the rule book a year and a half ago. And part of that also means I achieved one of my lifelong dreams, which is I literally moved to Europe in the middle of a pandemic, which was totally smart, and I highly do not recommend for anyone. That was insane. But that was only possible literally because I took the jump and started my own business. And then after I had done that, found out there was this incredible visa program specifically for the Netherlands. So it's interesting what happens when you are able to break out of that mentality of, oh, I got to follow the rules of the boys. No, you don't. In fact, you probably shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't. And I love that. And it resonates with me. I was laid off during the pandemic too, right? And I decided to be intentional about my brand. I decided to say whatever I felt and whatever I thought, and to just be that champion for women in sales and share some of these stories of my experience. And it's led me to places that I didn't think I was going to go, And if I hadn't done that, and I hadn't just let go of the idea that if people saw it on LinkedIn, that it was going to rule me out of that particular role, I had to embrace the idea that I don't care. Like if I write something that happened to me and how it impacted me, and it takes me out of the running for a role, then that role wasn't for me in the first place.
Bingo.
And I shouldn't care. I shouldn't care. And I'm only going to be miserable if I go after roles that they pause and they look at me and they say no because of my voice. So that really resonated with me. And we have a question here. So I want to take a second to answer this question before we get into that next area. So how can you tell if your company has sexist hiring practices? I'm the only woman on the sales team, and they just keep hiring men. Just wondering if you had encountered this. I of course have an answer, but I'm going to throw it up to the panel first in case anyone else would like to field this one first.
Can I ask, has anyone not seen this on the panel? Okay, that's part one. We'll defer to everyone else on this.
That is an excellent point. And it's hard to recognize when you're in the company and you realize you see all these men coming on board, right? And you realize that, even if they have one woman applicant, if they're only interviewing one woman and a bunch of men, the odds of hiring that woman are significantly lower. There's a study. I don't have a link to it, but I will totally find it for Sales Hacker. But I'll give everyone else an opportunity to share.
I think the big question a lot of times, because I found myself, I actually have a certificate in diversity and inclusion from Cornell University. And I found myself working with a leader with a $1 billion tech company right during all of the pandemic and, the George Floyd things of that nature. And he said, Joyce, I don't think that has been intentional. Where I haven't hired other people. It's just that these are the people that call me. These are the people in my network who asked for help, who asked me to help their family members, who asked me to help their kids. And he said, now that I know, basically he was saying to know better is to do better, right? And so I think that's why we have to use our voices in some cases to bring these things up, because obviously there is a problem surrounding you if you're the only one there that looks like you, right? And but is it intentful? And I think that's what, where you may want to go to find out. And by just using your voice, having some conversations around it, and then also volunteering, raising your hand and say, would you like me to find some candidates for you to help them out? Because otherwise it'll probably stay the same.
I think
That's an excellent point.
you're touching in a very important point, Joyce, and it's that network, the power of the network of amplifying voice, which is why I love Jen's initiative of the month, which is Amplify Her, right? And it's all about it. If you're a male, and you're surrounded by males and you post it, well, those are the ones that are going to apply to it. So that's where I always think it's not necessarily on the employer's fault that they don't have a more diverse team. It's also where they move, how they're wording out. This has been a huge conversation recently, is those job postings. What do they need to have in order to get women to apply to them? We know that we are very sensitive in terms of, are we checking on all the boxes? Are we not? And at the end of the day, we usually would say, I'll figure it out. If I really want it, if I get it, I'll figure it out. And we will figure it out. But we still struggle from really coming into terms with that. Like, we still want to check as many boxes as we want. And I've seen in many recent postings something really great, which is, even if you don't fit all these criteria, we want to hear from you if you really want to make a change. And boom, that changes immediately how the message is being received. So yeah, I mean, like, for example, in my case, I came to VanillaSoft a year ago. And when I joined, there were only 3 women in the sales team out of 11 team members. And all the women were like, oh, we're so excited that you're here. Finally, women here. And now my team is primarily women. And it's not because we were focused on it. It just happened to be, but it's because of the way that we have presented ourselves out there. Usually as well, we tend to believe like, okay, if there's a woman leading the team, there's definitely someone there standing up for me. So it's also getting men to be more verbal on their commitment to change and their commitment on seeing success, across the team, regardless of how you look, how you talk, what you like and what you don't like at the end of the day.
I think it also comes back to when hiring managers go to interview these applicants, that they need to consider the value someone different brings to the table. There's this idea out there in tech of culture fit, whether they're a good fit for the company. And sometimes that ends up getting defined as the person you most like to have a beer with. And the value of culture add is significant. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you a Sales Hacker example, right? So Sales Hacker acknowledged me last year for Women in Sales Month, which I loved. They sent me a beautiful blue t-shirt, and I love the t-shirt. On the back of the t-shirt, though, there was, a chart. It was like an arrow up and to the right, and it said up and to the right. And up and to the right, to me, as a 40-year-old woman coming from retail, meant someone was lying. Because in my management training throughout my career, up and to the left, it was up and to the right, was lying. And so I was like, what does this mean, Sales Hacker? And with my friends, we had a debate. What does it mean? What does it mean? And of course, if you looked it up and you looked it up with SaaS, up and to the right means growth. Everybody knows that. People were like, what do you mean? But I had been in SaaS since SaaS started. I have sold software for a long time. I don't know that phrase. I know to me it means something different. And having that diversity of thought is so important when you're starting to look at your sales pitch, your approach, everything. But does anyone else have? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, it's a real subtlety, but it's the difference between culture add and culture add as in someone who adds to the culture that already exists, versus culture add in terms of someone who brings something different. a different perspective, a different way of doing things, a different way of working, a different experience with clientele. Culture add should mean bringing something new, not repeating what already is present in general. It doesn't mean you don't reinforce things. It doesn't mean everyone has to be completely different, but our clients are different. Our buyers are different. Your sales team needs to reflect the diversity of perspective that is present in the world. And yes, I understand a lot of buyers have the same diversity issues that we do, but that's the thing. We can lead by example. The more sales can find this diversity of thought and show this works, because we're one of the more data-driven teams, we have more interaction with more companies than anybody else, the quicker we can diversify, the more we'll impact every other industry that we touch. But it's all about that subtlety between culture add as a reinforcer and culture add as a differentiator and as bringing something new to the table. I think it's also worth noting too, if you are on a team and you think there may be sexist hiring practices, that's a really tough spot to be in, I think, as an individual, because you don't set hiring practices. You don't want to stick your neck out. If you're not familiar with the concept of a tall daisy, the idea is basically the tallest daisy is the first one to get cut. So there's nerves on being the tall daisy. I get all that, but one of the best things you can do is just very directly ask questions and state what you're seeing without putting language on it or anything. So it was something as simple as, I've accepted 2 jobs in my life where I was asked illegal questions in the interview. In two separate instances, I was hired by a company after someone in the interview had asked me if I was planning to have children. Twice. But I chose to work at those companies knowing that, okay, I know that they were not supposed to ask that. No, I did not call it out in the interview. But one of my first stops after being hired was walking over to HR and saying, hey, by the way, so-and-so asked me this question in the interview. I know you know that's illegal. We should make sure we're retraining so this doesn't happen again. In every case, training happened. It didn't happen again. So it's picking the battles, and context matters. In each case, I was very aware the individual was trying to be nice. Knowledge is power, yada, yada, yada. But I decided I could make more change from the inside than from calling it out in the moment. So it's understanding what your levers look like, but just stating what happened. It wasn't going up and saying, hi, so-and-so did something illegal. It was, hey, this thing happened. Just thought you should be aware of it. Something as simple as that, or even, and if you're not comfortable going to your boss, HR is there to protect the company. You can use this to your advantage by going, hey, I noticed this weird thing that they're interviewing mostly men. Just wanted to flag it. You don't have a case, there's nothing you can do, but now HR is going to go take a look at that hiring process and get resources in place to amplify, because now it's been alerted. They're going to want to protect the company from any sort of discrimination lawsuit. So it's a tricky situation. I don't envy it. And I think I speak for hopefully everyone in the panel, not necessarily, but if you're in the situation and if we can help and need a spare brain, ideas, gut check on this. And there's a difference between hiring and internal culture. So I would hope, based on the question, your internal culture is positive. But in my experience, generally, if the hiring culture isn't necessarily healthy, then the internal culture isn't necessarily healthy either. So make sure you're also checking in, am I in a safe place? And if you're not, the hiring market is hot for salespeople right now. There is no reason to stay in a place where you are not safe and taken care of. So
100%. Go and find some place where they see you, they hear you, they empower you, they value you. 100%. So thank you for those thoughts, Ashley. We have a question that was thrown in the chat that says, I just joined. My issue is I'm the only woman and Black woman on my sales team where I sell software in the area of construction. I go to conferences and see barely anyone who looks like me. Has there been any scenarios mentioned on the call like this? We haven't talked about it yet. I don't know if there's anyone who wants to take this first.
Yeah,
I think I can. Oh, you want to take it?
I was
Go ahead, Hannah.
I was just going to say, like that's literally been, that's always been my situation. And to add to the fact that I'm also gay, and I'll very much be masculine presenting when I am in informal environments or corporate environments. I'm like, that's who I am. Get over it. And then I shaved off my hair, added to it, which is even more fun. But so you'd be in these environments, and one of the things I've always said is, so I was talking briefly about stock value. When you know your SHIT and you know the value that you can offer to organizations, you are not no matter what environment you're in, you can stand tall simply because, like, that's your superpower now. Because they can't relate to you, because in most of these occasions, you know, these older white men or these older white women, or, you know, these non-black individuals, they're not like you. So there's already sometimes this barrier that you may feel. Sometimes they don't feel it, but you may feel it, like, oh, I've almost given myself a bit of a complex here. But that's your superpower, because they don't know what to expect, and then you deliver greatness and they're blown away. So I'm always like, it's a superpower that we don't often have the confidence to tap into. But I learned very quickly, very often when I'd sit and was selling some really boring software. Wow, it was boring. However, I was always in the room selling data, and it would almost always be white men in their 40s. And I'd come in and, you know, it would be like, oh, sorry, we don't have an hour. We've actually got 20 minutes now. And then it would be like, you know, within 15 minutes, they're like, oh, yeah, just going to cancel my next meeting. I'm like, oh, yeah, you thought I was just going to come here and not be good, right? That's kind of in my back of my head. So tap into your superpower, which is the fact that they are expecting something different, and you're going to deliver something even better. So I appreciate it's tough. It really is tough. And not everybody can, like, maybe has the personality, or that's their natural space. But I promise you, there's this assumption where it's like, I'm not sure about you because I can't relate to you. You look so different to me. You probably have different lived experiences, but then you bring something that it exceeds their expectation, and you've won them over. And in those environments where you're in a conference and you're looking around, you're like, oh my gosh, it's okay. It's okay. Like, don't migrate to the people that just look like us. We're okay, right? Just be yourself and do what you're there to do, which is to deliver your value proposition, to show the value that you can bring to an organization, to make connections, to network, and surprise people. They'll be so, like, amazingly surprised. So I hope that kind of perspective helps a little bit. I'll let Joyce share hers, because she's got a wealth of experience too.
Yeah, you know, I've sold in that oil and gas segment for many, many years. And so I definitely showed up and being the only one, definitely being the only one in conferences and things like that. And, you know, a big part of, you know, my brand is just not creating a diverse moment, but also creating the inclusion. And when we're in those areas, I think, you know, like Hannah said, you find a way to connect with individuals, because we all have more in common than we don't. And we have to find ways to connect that commonality. You know, I say all the time, we want inclusion Monday through Friday, and sometimes on Saturday, and then Sunday we all go to our own individual churches where no one looks like, you know, I call it segregated Sunday, right? So we have to find a way to build that inclusion and take advantage of the places that we are in and build those relationships. Because if we build those relationships and we expand those doors, push them open for ourselves, then it empowers us and gives us opportunity to be able to bring someone else through those doors who greatly need to be there and deserve to be there. So find a way to, it's okay, right? I've gone to small towns where, you know, even when I went to McDonald's or fast food or a cakery or any event, the hotel, no one looked like me, right? But I found a way to connect with those individuals and have conversations with them, that when I went back into those small towns, they remembered who I was and greeted me. So I think we have to, when we're in that space, think, what can we do to build a more inclusive network for ourselves and for those individuals that are there with us?
Can I just want to jump in and expand on what Joyce said there, if you don't mind, just for a second. She really makes a massive point about inclusion. And I was at an event a few years ago, and I think it was at the time, so about 3 years ago, it was the head of diversity and inclusion at Twitter. Incredible lady, incredible presenter. And she said, you know, men stand up and stood up, women stand up, and it's like, okay, and we're all looking around like, what's going on here? And she just like, she's like, there's some massive differences here. And we're like, well, yeah, I'm a man, you're a woman, whatever. And then it was like, okay, people who have daughters stand up. And it was like, okay, you can see, look how many of us have similarities here. So you started to just realize that we are very similar. We have so many more similarities than we do differences, but we often forget that. So as Joyce was saying, just finding those kind of mutual paths to conversation is so much easier. You know, it's they're drinking coffee, you like the same coffee, brilliant, there you go, connection. We don't have to make it so complicated. And then you're just a human, and that energy starts to melt down compared to how you felt before. So I just wanted to expand on Joyce's really, really valid point with an example as well.
And I believe it adds to that confidence. Sorry, Jen, but yeah. I wanted to wrap it up. It's all part of that confidence, right? What you are worth. In my case, my accent has always been a big thing. And I know that for Latin people, that's one big thing because we usually get tagged. You might just not be clear. You might not be able to be successful in sales or any other thing, right? And it's how you're able to connect at the end of the day, deliver, and make your self-worth front and center rather than waiting for them to keep on judging you by however you look or sound at that given time.
Amazing. Thank you. So we're a little bit behind on time here with everything we still have yet to cover. So let's just go into positioning for that next level role. And I will take whoever wants to start with those insights. I could totally go.
Hey, you guys, just don't hop in there all at once. I was waiting for you guys because I being a business owner, I'm not really positioning for a next level role, but what I can share with you when I'm coaching people is to be intentful, to make sure you let everyone know what your goals are and what your plans are. Make sure you align yourself with the right mentors and possibly a sponsor if you can for where it is you want to go. But don't let the conversation of where you want to go take place the first time doing one of your annual reviews, right? You should be talking to your leadership and and the people that are on the other side of that role where you want to go the entire year and even longer in building relationships and maybe raising your hand to tag along and follow them on tasks or things that they're doing so that you can become more knowledgeable of what that role is. So don't wait to the last minute. If you know what it is you want to do, put some things into your folder that say, I need to do XYZ in order to prepare for this role. And as you do XYZ, go back and put that in your folder, your employee file, and say, I've checked off on this, I've checked off on that, what have you. But make sure that you're just, like I said, communicate what it is your goals are. Make sure everyone understands where you want to go and make sure you're aligning yourself with the people that can help you get there.
That is totally true. And then I would add, make sure that you're building out your personal board of directors and networking and making sure that you're getting sponsorship internally, but also spending that time with your leader to understand what that next level looks like. How do you get there? What are the steps you need to accomplish? Like making sure that every one-on-one you're using that opportunity to find out how you get to that next level. A lot of it is like communication and finding out what they're thinking. And this like leading with being curious is super valuable in this. I didn't know if anyone else. Yeah.
I'll say one other thing, Jen, that I asked of my last leader because I felt that she was not executing well on this. And so during a call with her one day, I said, what are you saying about me when I'm not in the room? Because I think it's very important, your leader is going to be in front of the other leaders and the people of the other organizations where you want to go. So I think you need to understand what's your leader's elevator pitch about you and what your leader is saying about you when you're not in the room. How are they positioning you? And you want to provide them some coaching on that and say, because if there's a gap of some information or skill set or training that you have prior to going to the company, sometimes we change leaders so much, the new leader just don't know, and they don't know what they don't know. So ask your leader, what do you say about me when I'm not in the room? And then help them build on that so that you can make sure they're saying the things that you need them to say to ensure your future success.
That is amazing. And I think that was the mic drop moment, as Michelle states it. What do you say when I'm not in the room? That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Did anyone, we have some more questions that are coming up. So we could either, with about 11 minutes left, we can either take the questions or we can do this next question that we've got on the agenda. I think we should take the questions from the audience.
I think we should also, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Giselle asked, how do additional accreditations help you like PMP in sales? I think, I'll let someone take that. Additional credentials and whether there's any value in them and how to leverage that.
I can take that.
Yeah.
It really depends on what sort of sales you want to do. So I'll give you an example. I'm currently going for a AWS cloud certification, the lowest level one. I'm doing that so I can talk to my prospects better, so I can understand, I can literally speak their language. As I continue in this space, I'll probably go up another couple levels, not because I'm going to do anything with it, but simply so I can talk to my customers. PMP, I'm assuming that's project management. I think it is.
Yep.
I could see that being really helpful in the sense of if you're dealing with a space that relies very heavily on that, or alternatively, honestly, and this is, I think, the bigger question is, I think anything that helps you think better, more critically, more creatively, or anything that helps you better understand your prospect will always help your career. And it can be a little bit of an edge when it comes to a hiring process. So as a woman in sales, you know, Ginger Rogers did everything that Fred Astaire did backwards and in heels. A couple extra accreditations don't hurt. That said, I don't think it's something I would ever encourage someone to go into debt for, leave a job for, or anything like that. But if you have the opportunity to get something, I don't think it ever hurts, and it can occasionally be the deal breaker. But more than anything, I think it's more about helping your mindset, helping your skill set, and helping you better communicate with those prospects, because as everyone else has said, we are more alike than dislike. So the more you can expose yourself to different areas, it'll just help you be a better connector and a better communicator.
100% agree. And I would add, I'm a mentor for Girls Club, and there's a lot of value in Girls Club with the content that they offer, not only for like just the confidence building, but like how to coach on calls and how to lead. And going through that process, having a mentor, having not only access to a female mentor, but also male mentors, so that you can get those perspectives. Because even though I can give you my feedback, right? Your sales leader, if it's a male sales leader, may have a different perspective entirely, right? So the more perspectives you can get on any given scenario, the better off you are. And I highly recommend that the Girls Club program, just because there's so much value there, and especially with that networking and building up that personal board of directors. So we've got another question here from Megan. Any tips, suggestions as a female sales manager with male sales reps?
For me, I pulled a Mary Kay on them and they didn't even know, right? I broke them up in teams. I give them a theme song. We played the music coming in, but also, just really, I've had my guys read books quarterly, right? And I selected books that I thought that would help them not only professionally, but personally, like books on conflict management, books on, building themselves as men, but also, helping them understand their role as, as leaders in the organization. And, and it's funny because sometimes their wives would end up reading, these books as well. And I think they always enjoy the books on conflict management and things because it shows them how to relate to women and everyone else. And it's showing them how to relate to you. And then in addition, hey, I just have always gotten the my club memberships where I can take the winner of the sales month golfing, and we go and I hang out with them for the first 9 holes, and then we go to the 19th and I leave them there. And so, but I think, just like women or anyone else, they want to be great leaders. They want to be understood. And they want to, and have that connection and help to move along in their careers. I don't really think it's much different, other than when we traveled, I would put them at a different hotel because I was like, I don't need to know everything. So I just think it's fun dealing with them, period.
No, true story. And I would add, like, it's discovery, right? Just like you do a discovery on a prospect, you do discovery on your team members. Right? What could you do better? What is their perception of your leadership? What can you do to support them? And understanding that, there's that surface level, just like in discovery, there's the surface level, the stuff that they're going to tell you right up front, and that you need to dig deeper because you need to get to the heart of the matter. I think of it as like the skin, the bone, the heart. Get to the heart of the matter, and they're not going to do that by just saying, hey, how you doing? right? You literally have to
absolutely.
build relationships. Yeah.
And men are more willing to tell you exactly what they want, exactly where they want to go, exactly what they want their next role to be, and why they think they should do it. They take a lot of time, they take the guessing game out of it. I mean, there's been a few times when I say, what motivates you? And they say money. And I'm like, okay, well, what you going to do with the money, right? Does the wife want a new car? You need to buy a house. That's the true motivator. But for the most case, I found, and something that we could work on more as women, I probably learned that from the men in my life and on my teams, that you want something, you better ask for it. And you better go for it, because they're going to go for it.
Embrace your journey. Own your path. You want something, go after it. That's excellent point. So,
Can
a couple.
can I ask a quick question here for the panel? Because it's one thing that I find really interesting in my own career is when I know where I want to go, I don't typically have a significantly hard time getting there, because I've learned over my career to ask for help and do all the things you guys are talking about. How have you guys handled it? How have you ladies, sorry, correcting my language, inclusive language. How have you ladies handled it when you don't know what next step you want to take next? When you're debating between management and IC, when you're trying to figure out if you want to stay in a closing role or move over to CS or maybe RevOps, how do you plan for the next step when you don't know what the next step is?
Okay, I was giving everyone a chance to go first.
Oh, yeah.
I do just the next best thing, right? So there was a point in my career where, do I want to be a leader, or am I looking for something different? And I was very fortunate to get a scholarship to a VP of sales program, where I determined I did not want to be a VP of sales, like did not ever. And that was great. But not everyone has that opportunity. And I've got a certain amount of privilege because I had that opportunity, right? So I think figuring out what you're passionate about, what energizes you, like even in your job role, what are the parts that you like and what are the parts you don't like? And starting to chart your path of what you enjoy to find out where you should be. Sales is such a big category. Like I'm in sales enablement. There are so many different pathways in sales now. There are sales coaches, sales enablement, there's leadership, there's, I love the part where I would get in the doors. I could be an SDR tomorrow and enjoy it. I just, there's a perception there, which sucks, but it's the reality.
Yeah, I think let's stop focusing on titles and focus on what we want to accomplish. And then once you decide what it is you want to accomplish, if that's leading people indirectly, if that's leadership influence without authority, if that's owning your own quota, your own path, or, leading others to make their quota, be very clear. Just write about the things that you have experienced that you really love and where you feel, and be honest with yourself. Like I told people in 2017, I sat down and I asked myself, what is it that I have to offer the world, and what does the world need from me?
I think don't be afraid to document what you want outside of work too. I find going that way a lot easier than starting with what I want from work and going out. I start with lifestyle and then reverse engineer back into my work. It's a lot easier for me.
Yeah, the lifestyle thing definitely works. I remember, I think I was about 23 or 24 when I came into it's like my second proper sales job after leaving a big corporate. I went to a slightly smaller corporate, and after the interview, got through to the second stage, and I actually then got them to present to me, and they were like, "What the hell?" But I was like, "Listen, like, me in my little suit, I didn't even fit properly." But I was like, "Hey, I need to get to, I was 20. I was like, I need to earn 100K by this date, like." And I understand this role. I need to understand what roles and what I need to achieve in the next few years to get there. And they were like, "You ain't going to get that here. However, we can get you so far." So they always knew after 2 years, if I exceeded my target, I was going to be looking. So I was like congratulated and supported when I was transitioning out of the business after 2.5 years, because they knew that they couldn't support me with that. However, they gave me so much skills and what I needed in that space they were like, oh, you've got a niche, you're really good at this kind of selling, do more of that. And I was like, this is great, but we do need to be braver, just like Ashley says, look at outside of what we need to do, take it internally and say, okay, how does this company help me reach my goals? If they don't, do not go there. Especially now, there's so many roles, guys. Please, guys and girls, there's a lot of jobs out there. Come to me. I've got loads out there as well that people are recruiting for. So please give me a shout if you are looking for a sales role. So there's tons that I know of. Yeah.
I would definitely highlight the part on really assessing and understanding what makes you happy and what you want to keep on doing and pursuing for you. I find that these days everyone is just in a crazy mode of following the shiniest object out there. Oh, SaaS, everyone jumps into SaaS. Oh, leadership, everyone jumps into leadership. And it doesn't mean it's going to be the best fit for you and for your future. And yes, obviously growing pains. And yes, obviously it's part of the journey, but there's no need for you to go through difficulties or uncomfortable moments as you're trying to figure it out if you really take 2 seconds to assess you. Because at the end of the day, you're stuck with you, right? So just making sure what makes you happy, what fulfills your heart, what are those moments that kind of get your heart pumping and make you smile, and then try to look for something that aligns to it, and obviously a company that will support that path.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. And keep in mind, you define success. What does success look like for you? Not for your leader, not for that guy, just for yourself. There are times in my life where, my kids were young. Success for me was just getting through them being young and working and like being employed, like sleeping 4 hours. That was success. And so different parts of your life are going to have different ideas of what success is. For me, success right now is to be happy. I just want to be happy. And I want to feel good that I'm making the world a better place for my daughter. And that's it. That's success for me. And so I'm keeping it simple. Now we can go over, and we're already over. And some of the attendees have mentioned we're okay with you going over. But I want to give everyone an opportunity to have like some final thoughts. If there's something you could throw in there about how leaders can recognize potential, that would be awesome too, since that was something we said we were going to cover. But I do want everyone who can stay. If you can't, that's fine too. Totally get it. But we answered a lot of really great questions, and the insights you ladies brought were amazing. So thank you. I'm very grateful for that. So I will start with Joyce. Any final thoughts? Any ideas on what sales leaders can do to recognize potential?
It starts with having conversations and spending that one-on-one time with individuals to really understand who they are at their core, and asking the right questions, right? Asking the right questions. And like you said, sometimes you get something on the surface, because if you haven't had those conversations in the past, they may be a little bit uncomfortable, right? So, now you're going to have to be a little patient and dive a little deeper to ask them what's important to them. How can you support them? And, and don't be afraid to just, in this virtual space, is really hard to stay, connected with your team. I was trying to figure out something for my team a few weeks ago. And so I just sent them a DoorDash for lunch. I sent an email at them more, hey, everyone, lunch is on me, right? And sent everyone a DoorDash coupon to their email. But you have to find a way to break that ice and get to know people and really understand who they are, their and their personal and professional dynamics without getting too personal, but allowing them to open up so you can understand what drives them and how you can help them get there. But it's going to start with that conversation and really making that connection. And that's going to start with, if you haven't done that in the past, it's going to have to, start with baby steps of you being consistent and intentional in that message.
100%. Catherine, I know you got to run, so if you can share any final thoughts.
Yeah, I love Joyce just says the right things, eh? You don't leave much for us to kind of compliment on it, but I always like tying it back, and that's how I do it with my team as well. Is our job is exactly the same way. We are in sales, and we need to drive conversations. We need to really ask the right questions. We need to really show that we care, that we are, in sync, that we have a broader picture as well into the whole conversation. And it's the same with us, and it's the same with our employer. Nothing should change. Ask the questions. Some questions are going to be harder than others, but you got to ask them. And you got to look for that next level of your happiness, of your fulfillment. Find your voice, follow it. Haters will always hate. So that's the other thing, right? Like, you can't be constantly taking too serious every single piece of feedback or every single comment. Keep a close eye on it, but don't let that pull you down, because it'll make you a lot more harm than what you would expect.
100%. Hannah, I know you got to go too. Do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So I guess 2 or 3 things. One, don't make every interaction you have with your reps a pipeline conversation. Like, surprise them sometimes. Like, every conversation, even when it's not supposed to be, just says, so, okay, open up Salesforce or open up HubSpot. It's like, and it builds that pressure where I can't talk to you about anything other than work, which unfortunately is just not going to be sustainable in the long term for someone's success. And do your best to help them work on their internal stock value. Not everybody has the personality where they'll be out and they're out and they're loud and they're boastful about what they're doing and what they're achieving, whether they are male or female. So work with them to get them to be comfortable in having some kind of internal discussions that at least helps to showcase their strengths. And to Joyce's point earlier on is mention their name in a room full of opportunities, around different stakeholders. Just say, oh yeah, Hannah's good at that, or Maria's good at that. And do that as often as you can to help support their progression in the company. That was my points.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. Ashley, some final thoughts?
The other thing I think I'd mention, I'd add on to what everyone else is saying, is make it a point to be continually educating yourself and share that journey with your team. It's really easy to, I hate to be blasé about this, but it's real easy to read a book and post on LinkedIn. It's really easy to do that, to read an article, read a book, post on LinkedIn. Talk to your team about the impact it had on you. Ask them for recommendations of ways to better expose yourself. Ask for feedback on how you're doing. It's not their responsibility to guide your journey, but just sharing that you are going through it is a great opportunity to model what growth can look like, and to model the behavior that hopefully you hope that the people on your team are going to do as well. I am not a person of color. I've had to do a lot of work and ongoing work to make sure that I am constantly able to engage and support, especially my sisters in sales who are of color, in their journeys, to be better aware, to use better language, to better advocate in ways that are meaningful and helpful, not just lip service. Even though it was never my intent. But I find being honest about the journey, being honest when you screw up, and things that you learn along the way, I think goes a long, long way in terms of normalizing these things and showing, I think, the laggards that you don't have to get it right all the time, which is a common excuse to not do anything. Because it's false logic. But if you could say, hey, look, I got this wrong. I used the wrong language. This was stupid. One of my best friends that I made last year became a good friend because I screwed up on a call and said something that was accidentally insulting. And she called me out on it. And I was like, wow, I totally screwed that up. I'm really sorry. Thank you for correcting me. She's now a really good friend, but it started with me admitting, wow, I was wrong. Thank you for educating me. Coincidentally, we're talking about the Crown Act. If you're in the States and you don't know what that is, please go look it up. It's about protecting the rights of preventing discrimination against women who choose to wear their natural hair. Versus being forced to subscribe to things that are either unhealthy or straight up racist, or a bunch of other stuff that's really weird around natural hair in the States that employers and companies can ask you to do, but they really shouldn't be able to. So the Crown Act's really important legislation.
That's really interesting. I didn't know anything about that. I'm going to have to go educate myself about that. It's funny. I wore my hair naturally because I have naturally curly hair, like really curly hair. For the first time in like a decade to work, just like a couple weeks ago. And I felt completely comfortable and it was okay. And you know what? I chose the place where it was okay. and that felt really good. You made some really excellent points there. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I roll my hair curly, and I obviously this is pretty normal for me, crazy. I wore my hair curly for the first time ever to a work event. I was hosting the Topo event 2019. That was the first time I ever worn my hair natural. I always been flat ironing it and burning it and trashing it. And I had 3 different women come up to me and say how much they appreciated seeing someone with curly hair on stage. I've never worn it straight since because I didn't realize until that moment how powerful it could be. But it also made me realize, oh God, I really haven't seen, unless they're like the curls that we all dream. That if you're gonna have curly hair, like you dream of having those perfect like pin curls. I mean, obviously, I'm talking about white curly hair. There's a whole other world there too. But it's a really powerful thing. Just something as simple as our hair. Guys, don't worry about this stuff.
Yeah. No, I had someone in my career tell me not to wear my hair that way after wearing my hair like early in my career. And it kind of just, it stuck. And, but everyone has their own unique journey and their own experiences. And you never know someone's journey until you're curious enough to ask. I think the one really important thing that you mentioned there, and I think has been an ongoing theme, is this idea of education. You don't know what you don't know, and you certainly don't know if you don't ask. And I think that this awareness that we always need to be growing and adapting and changing and being more inclusive and trying to understand other people better, whether that's men or anyone. Like we're seeking to be inquisitive and curious and at least giving people the benefit of the doubt and seeking to understand rather than judging people. I think when we talk about some of the challenges with women who have gotten to the top and who go, well, I had to work this hard to get to the top, and so you should have to work this hard to get to the top too, because that's the way it's done. And like, that is such an old idea when we have such capability of lifting each other up and helping each other to be more inclusive and to be just kinder people, kinder society. And I think that's really important.
Scarcity versus abundance. It's there's no reason not to have an abundance mindset. We talked in the pre-call. I shared the fact that the most sexist thing that has happened to me in my career was woman on woman. It was not man on woman. And that's not uncommon, and we think it's probably pretty generational without stereotyping too much. But it's this idea that there's a seat for a woman at the conference table. That doesn't mean there needs to stay one. Let's pull up 2, 3 more. That we don't have to be battling each other for this stuff. And anyone who tries to say, even if it's another woman, is just stuck in a place of scarcity. And it's not your job to fix it. But you do not have to give into that mindset. You absolutely can either choose to remove yourself from that situation or just operate from, no, there's room. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm not coming for your seat. I'm going to go get my own. It's okay.
Or make some room. Yeah, make room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Make room.
Yeah. Hey, let's just put those chairs together and 3 of us sit on them. I mean, I don't know.
You guys can squeeze together. It's fine.
Maybe we'll sit on each other's lap or something. Whatever we got to do to make that happen. But and I am so horrible with the chat. I was trying to look at the chat, but I want to be also looking at the screen. And so I did see where some folks said some great comments and things. I think I tried to send Michelle a note, and I said to Jennifer, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys being here and all of your support. And hope that something that's been said. To help us along. I know that Catherine isn't on anymore, but I remember her mentioning in the beginning about her dad really helping her with her voice. And I probably say this on every platform I'm on, is that let's get back to Take Your Daughter to Work Day, because the more that men understand and see that their daughters want to be in roles like them, the more open they're going to be to letting our daughters in those roles.
Full disclosure, my dad took me to Oracle Take Your Daughter to Work Day 2 years in a row.
Yes.
This was Oracle Redwood Shores, or this was in the late 90s. I went around, I got the t-shirts. I did not understand what Oracle was. I know what Oracle is.
I know. I don't know if Y Sales Network is going to have to relaunch that. I don't know if I'm going to have to own it, but I just really think that, I think it gave us some progress. And, you know, like when Catherine's a good example that said her father was teaching her to own her voice, and that stuck with me for a minute. So, you know, hey, if they're, you know, even if it's virtual, right?
Yeah.
My niece likes to sit in the chair in my office and listen to conference calls. And, you know, every once in a while she's like, "May I ask a question?"
I'll
So-
say this too. If anyone doesn't know about it, I'm sure someone will go find the link. John Barrows wrote a book with his daughter called "I Want to Be in Sales When I Grow Up," and the proceeds go to charity. Check it out. It's on Amazon. I Want to Be in Sales When I Grow Up. It is super cute. I bought it for my nieces. I bought like 8 or 10 copies at this point. But, and that's the other thing I love about sales specifically, is this is such a great career to go into, that you can grow and you can have unlimited success, even if you step away for a few years to focus on your family, to focus on something else. We've got work we've got to do because women are still disproportionately punished for those choices. But by leaning into that confidence, as Catherine was talking about, by owning your voice, by doing all these things, by building a strong network, we're mitigating that damage that society is putting on us every single day, and we're opening up more doors. But the best way to do that is start planting these ideas and showing our nieces, our nephews, our daughters, our friends' kids that this stuff is possible. And I'm a really good example. My dad was in sales. I was raised by a salesman who traveled, and I swore I would never be in sales because I didn't want to travel. I don't travel, and I'm still in sales. And it's fast. We've got a lot of undoing we need to do around what it takes to be successful in sales and what a successful salesperson looks like. Leonardo DiCaprio and the guys from Glengarry Glen Ross are not successful sales reps. They're what we all think of every day.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah, there was actually a question at one point that, like, or part 2 of a question that we didn't really get to, where, you know, the person was sort of at an event, and that the people coming up sort of lean towards going to the male direction. And it reminds me of this, right? That, okay, they will start going over there. And unless that salesperson is really good and really there to be of service to others, they're going to start looking your way. So just give it a chance, you know, because people can tell when you're invested in them. When you're about their success, they know it. People could smell bullshit a mile away.
That's true.
It's true. And there's nothing worse than a car salesman. That's all I got to say about that.
I saw that question too, and I can't speak to it I can't speak to the position of being a woman of color, but as a woman who started her career working with a buyer who is stereotypically a little bit more antisocial. I was selling to security engineers, so they're not only engineers, but they're security, so they're paranoid. I definitely saw that at events where they were much more comfortable. My buyers were just more comfortable going to male colleagues. Excuse me. But it wasn't about changing who I was to get them to come to me, but it was about finding things that we could connect with. So like something really silly I started doing was, I'm a massive Trekkie. So I wore a little Federation pin.
Oh.
Something just really silly like that. And all of a sudden I got all the Trekkies. Because one, they were like, "Hey, do you know what that is?" I'm like, please, TNG for the win, let's go. And then they realize I'm actually a Trekkie, and then I'm doubly interesting because there are a lot of girls who are interested in Trek, but there aren't a lot that are like, can recite names of episodes and have actually met Jean-Luc Picard and like couldn't speak because they were so excited when they shook his hand. It's a thing. But that was something I could connect with that made me a little less intimidating to them. So it's finding those things you have commonality and then finding a way to bring it out to make it something that's interesting, that they can approach you versus going. And when I was trying to like pick like people who were waiting in line with my colleague, that it came across as, even if I was being very genuine, just trying to be nice, they're like, "I'd rather just talk to him, please. Like, I just don't want to deal with you." So think about something that you can do to kind of make yourself a little more accessible. Another thing I found works really well is food.
Oh yeah, 100% food.
Chocolate.
Being closer to the bar.
Yeah, drinks.
All of that.
I've avoided drinks because when I've tried stuff like that in the past, they tend to assume I'm a waitress, and I do not want to deal with that. But especially at the point where I was really working booths a lot. I was in my early 20s, and I was like, I don't need to be confused with. No disrespect to anyone who's waitressing or anything like that, but like I need people to like not mistake the suit as a uniform. But yeah, just having little good bits of chocolate or something, and being like, hey, you need a lift, like tossing them at people. It's something.
Yeah, I sold accounting software to fire and life safety and construction, and found that heels, kind of like the little things that set you apart, but leaning into who you are at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I'm very familiar with that male dominated. Obviously, don't have the same experiences and but none of us do. You know what I mean? I'm 45 years old and I have 2 kids, and I started later in life, and you know what I mean? Like, everyone's unique experiences are part of what makes them them.
Yeah, for me, I would wear my pink hard hats. I may have some steel toe shoes on, but I was going to have on a pink hard hat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I travel with my pink hard hat. That hard hat went through the airport with me.
And now I feel like I need to find that person's name. Please reach out. Because we're totally going to go find her a pink hard hat for construction.
Oh, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, for me,
That is
I love
awesome.
my pink hard hat. And with the pink hard hat also, a lot of times people actually related it to my sorority because our colors were pink and green. And so then that sparked another conversation. But, I would travel and I would walk right in there with my pink hard hat. I traveled with it.
That's amazing. All right. Well, I think it's time to wrap it up. We've
It's
lost
time to
some
wrap
of
it
our
up.
panelists. We are 20 minutes over. Hopefully nobody else has any questions, but if you do, please reach out to us. I'm so curious to know if men have these conversations and how to be more relatable to us.
Plug it, Jen.
Great discussion.
They do.
Yeah,
They do.
that's an excellent question, and I've got the perfect event for that. I have an event with some male sales leaders. That is an AMA. Ask them anything. There's a way to submit questions anonymously, but there's also a way where you can hop on live to ask them their questions by jumping into the studio. If you want the face-to-face of their response, totally up to you. I'm game for anything. But I want some hot questions, so send some my way if you have a chance. And so I put the link in the comments. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hopefully you found this valuable. I seriously suggest connecting with everyone on this panel. I find a lot of value in their insights on the daily, and so appreciate everything that they do. And happy Women in Sales Month.
Happy Women in Sales Month. And please connect with me on LinkedIn and follow our Y Sales Network page on LinkedIn as well, and engage with our audience. Love to answer questions. I'm always up and open to sharing and having a conversation with anyone. So, and I have, my podcast, and we have our things that go on, our conferences and things. So definitely connect on LinkedIn. I think I'm like Joyce J, because I've been on like a long time. I'm like Joyce J, but Joyce Johnson. Just find me on LinkedIn and connect. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. And amplify the voices of other women, right? This is a great opportunity. We're in Women in Sales Month. Be intentional. If you're going to be sharing posts by other people, at least amplify the voices of the other women, right? I'm trying to just engage with women this month. I don't know if I'm going to try to hold out. I've got lots of thoughts and lots of posts, but just, amp the women's voices. The LinkedIn platform is really busy, and it's an opportunity to just make more space. Anyway, so thank you all. I'm going to close it out.
Thank you.